What's up, guys? So we're now into the semi-finals of the World Snooker Championship, and I think it's been a very good tournament, very high quality amount of level of play, and actually the matches themselves have been very exciting. So there's a lot to unpack. So I think we should just get straight into it. So I'm just gonna give my predictions, off the bat straight away. I think I'm just gonna get them out the way. Then I'll just go into my analysis of what has happened so far, who's been the best players and such. So I actually think we have the four best players we've had in this tournament in the semi-finals, which is very good to see. The standard has been so high, and thankfully now we've got four very good players, basically at the peak of their powers. I mean, it's hard to say that for Higgins and Murphy. Higgins in the late 2000s winning that many titles, early 2010s as well. But I mean, obviously the longevity he and the other class of 92 had, it's hard to pinpoint where Higgins is his best, and now you could say he's getting close to that. I think even Higgins himself was saying he's playing the best he has in his whole career, and really there's not much there to dispute that. He's playing incredibly well. A very, very strong run in this tournament, beating Ronnie O'Sullivan in a decider in the second round. Then beating Neil Robertson, mounting a comeback against him. I mean, the comeback against Ronnie as well was incredible, from 9-4 down to win 13-12 in the decider. But Sean Murphy as well has had an incredible run. I mean, in the first round, he was this close to being knocked out and showing absolute, bottle clutch, whatever you want to call it, in the first round to win 10-9. And then going on in the quarterfinal to beat the defending champion Zhao Xintong, who looked invincible. I mean, Xintong at the Crucible so far, if you look at last year and this year, he was basically untouchable, But Murphy really, I think, it's not even a clash of styles. I think Murphy and Xintong both have very attacking styles, and both of them probably have the best cue action on the tour. But I think really that's where Murphy edges Xintong, because that robotic, almost virtually flawless long potting, cueing, all of that Xintong has. He started the match going off the blocks really well, but that sort of waned. And when Murphy had that 5-frame bounce at the start, I think it rattled Xintong a little bit, even though Zhao Xintong doesn't show it. That I think it did, because I mean, he has incredible temperament, but it's hard for a player not to get psychologically affected when your opponent is playing as good as Sean Murphy was. And yeah, I think that in this match between Murphy and Higgins, they're both playing at such a high level. I'm so excited to watch this match, because I mean, the tournament so far, I found it so entertaining. But I think these matches, I mean, these are really these players at the peak of their powers. So I think the Murphy-Higgins match, again, that side of the bracket, you could make so many, combinations of a final, and it would make a blockbuster. Like Murphy versus Zhao Xintong final would also be insane. Murphy versus Higgins final would be insane. But I think, yeah, right now, I'm going back to the headspace thing because it influences my prediction. Murphy had a 3-day break after winning the second round with a session to spare, whereas obviously Higgins went through the grueling match against O'Sullivan, coming back from 9-4 down to win 13-12 in the decider. Now, obviously, Murphy also had a pretty tough match against the defending champion Zhao Xintong. It was always going to be a tough match. But I think winning it the way he did, he went 3-0 down, but then he won 5 on the bounce, and he ended up winning 13-10. So if after the first 3, he lost on the bounce. So after those 3 frames, he won 13 of the next 20, because obviously Xintong only won 7 more. Murphy won 13 more. That is quite significant. That is winning 13 out of 20. That is about 65% of the frames after that 3-0, or it is 65%. So that just shows, how good Murphy was then. I mean, to make Xintong feel that pressure to affect his game. It's going to be interesting to see, because I think that Wu Yize will also advance to the final, and because I also think Murphy will advance to the final, because I'm keeping my prediction that Murphy will win the championship that I had before the quarterfinals even finished. So it will be interesting if the same thing will happen to Wu Yize, especially in a 4-session final, best of 18, best of 35, third race to 18, because I mean, Zhao Xintong in the Crucible the last 2 years has been like invincible. I mean, until he played Sean Murphy, he was the favorite, of course. Favorite going into the tournament, favorite the way he played in the tournament. Even if he wasn't, the clear-cut best player, Xintong was firmly in control. And, that Xintong Sean Murphy match was really like, I mean, that could have easily been a brilliant final. Zhao Xintong, I don't think he played at his best, even though he showed sparks of it, like the way he started the game, that frame when it was 12-9 where he made it 12-10. But when you're playing against Sean Murphy at the peak of his powers, you can't afford to make even one mistake, because Murphy with his Rolls Royce Q action, incredibly aggressive play when he's playing at his best, getting those long pots in. And with this new break of his that he has, I feel like that's really disrupting the equilibrium of players like Xintong, who are very, orthodox, robotic, with impeccable technique. But just shows that Sean Murphy and his match play, which against John Higgins, who is also an incredible match player, incredibly complete player, incredible tactical player and break builder, it will be very interesting to see. Especially because both these players have been clutch, have been shown bottle. I think this may be the match of the tournament, maybe bar the final even, because Mark Allen also has been incredible, but Wu Yize, according to the bookies, is the slight favourite to win the tournament and the heavy favourite between himself and Mark Allen to go through. But I think probably the 4 best players are in the semi-finals, the 4 best players in this tournament. So it's really anyone's to take, especially in a 4-session format, really. You could have one poor session as long as you don't get like almost whitewashed. Like, I mean, I was there at the Crucible last year when Ronnie got whitewashed 8-0 in that one session against Zhao Xintong. I mean, that really solidified in my head how good Zhao Xintong is. And obviously you could say, Crucible curse, etc., etc. It's so hard to win the championship in any year, and the year after you've defended it, even if you've got like insane temperament, insane mentality like Zhao Xintong has. When you come up against somebody like Sean Murphy, it's like an incredible roadblock. It's so hard to just, go through that. You may have an off game, and especially in like a 2-3-session format, it's obviously, if you have like one poor session, or even having one good session, it's not enough. You have to be consistently good throughout. Now, I think that will be interesting because Wu Yize so far has shown he's very good in the 3 sessions. But what that extra session with the extra, in the semi-final will be extra 8 frames, up to that, because it's going from a best of 25 to a best of 33, and Mark Allen has way more experience in that. And when you look at the juggernauts that are John Higgins and Sean Murphy, who are some of the greatest of all time, that is maybe what may make the difference. So I think Wu Yize is the bookie's favorite, and I think, understandably so. But I think still, for me, I think whoever wins Higgins versus Murphy will go on to win it, I think. And I think Murphy will win that game. It will be close. Probably something like 17-15, 17-14 to Murphy. And I can certainly see Higgins winning it as well. But I think the experience of those two will probably trump Wu Yize, even though Wu Yize is so much like Zhao Xintong. Impeccable technique, incredibly consistent, and incredible temperament. But I think that the same thing goes for Sean Murphy and John Higgins, and especially the way they're playing, especially the way Murphy has played, aggressive, not showing any signs of losing confidence. And I think really that sort of, you could say, game he had where he won it with a session to spare in the second round, that could also help him because he was well rested, which helped him against Zintong for sure. But I think you could, say the same for, Wu Yize beat Hossein Vafai. Not very comfortably, but, with a 5-frame margin. That's not, as tight as, for example, Murphy and Higgins games. But even Mark Allen, him against, Barry Hawkins was quite close as well. So I think really, especially you look at the emotion that came out of him when he secured the match. But I think Mark Allen will put up a good fight to Wu Yize. Really, it will be quite telling, really, what is, Wu Yize like in the 4-session format after that game. And really, in this one-table setup, what he can do. But I think really the final is shaping up to be, for me, Wu Yize versus Sean Murphy. But it could easily be, Wu Yize versus John Higgins. And as I said, don't count out Mark Allen. It could easily be Mark Allen not only going to the final and winning it. But for me, Sean Murphy, I still think he is who I picked to be the winner. And I think really the favourite is so close between Murphy and Wu Yize. Wu Yize probably has the slight advantage because obviously variety of factors, how he's performed before the tournament this season and in the tournament itself. But it will just be cracking, I'm so excited to see what will happen. 4 sessions, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Because even though we've had these 3-session formats, right, it's like, Murphy has won one of his games with a session to spare. A lot of these games have been won by, a decent margin, more than half a session, because half a session is 4 frames. Wu Yize beat Hossein Vafai 13-8. And, Sean Murphy beat Zhao Zintong 13-10, which is just under 4 frames, half a session. So, but when it comes to the added 4th one, you just tell how much bigger it can be, how much bigger the gaps can be exaggerated. But then let's say somebody is 13-8 or 13-9 at the end of the 3rd session, right? And if it was a 3-session game, they've won. But then you've got that extra session, anything can happen, because in the semi-final, if it's like 13-10, let's say, the person who's winning has 4 frames to go, but the person who's losing has 7 to go. So, that actually, in the grand scheme of things, in one final session is not much, because let's say the guy who's trailing by 3 wins the first session 3-1, and then it's, just almost level, like all to play for. So really, you have to be so consistent, and even if you have a bad session, you can't let that get to you. In fact, this is probably a bit more forgiving on, people that dip a lot, because they can recover from it. But if it's a player that dips and they can't get back into the right headspace, then it's, that's where they'll struggle, which you've seen from a lot of great players as well, really struggling in the crucible, longer formats, whether it's the pressure, whether it's like the marathon aspect of the World Championship, namely Judd Trump and Neil Robertson, who are some of the greatest of all time, who've only won 1 championship each. So Wu Yize, I'm very curious to see what he can do, because we've already seen the other 3 players in this position, but Wu Yize, we've never seen him. But a player of his level, I'm excited to see what he can produce, but I'm sure they'll all do very well. And I'll see you guys in the next video when I will actually analyze these matches in the midst of them happening and also post-match as well. Thank you for watching. See you very soon.